Hi, everybody. I'm Mark Thurman from IBM. Welcome. We're going to have an interesting discussion. But first, as Shane alluded to, I'm going to have our panelists introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Rob Holden, AT&T. I'm in the CTO organization of AT&T, dealing with LPWA networks.
Hi, good to see everyone. Close-knit community, as you can tell. Shamik Basu, I head up IoT Business Products. That includes connectivity and our Edge solutions as well.
Good morning, everybody. My name is David Cohen. I'm with T-Mobile, and I lead our IoT Solutions sales team for T-Mobile for Business.
Good morning. I'm Luke Ibbetson. I lead the group research and development organization for Vodafone. One of the pioneers of narrowband IoT, and it's good to see so many familiar faces in the crowd. It feels like coming home to these events.
It is like coming home. And Shane, thank you for inviting us, and thanks to the GSMA and Chantal and all the team for helping us put this together. So we're going to have an informal discussion amongst us. At the end, since we don't have the capability to facilitate Q&A during the session, we're going to suggest that if you come to the back, if you want to meet with any of the panelists or say hello or introduce yourself, that they'll hang around for a few minutes, maybe even after Lori's talk. So we can do that whenever. So as Shane said, there's roughly 270 networks out there. Some, 2G and 3G is decommissioning now, and these guys are all managing millions and millions of devices. So question number one, is roaming any easier now?
I would say not, actually. I think it ought to be. And I'm looking actually at us as the mobile operator community in terms of not doing enough to make roaming easier. So one of the key work items that we've been working on within the 5G IoT, what do we call it, Shane, strategy group, is to create a table, a very simple table, where people put in the roaming parameters that allows customers to have much more fluid movement between networks. The table's been out there. I looked at it again this morning. There's not that many names on the sheet. So I think there's some very, very direct steps we can take as operators to make the roaming journey far, far easier for the guys who are trying to use our technology.
But before they respond, why were you looking at the roaming table this morning? Especially after the night I've heard that you had.
Hey, you're not meant to talk about what happens in Vegas.
We're still here. So I guess, I don't know who wants to jump in, but hopefully you're not reading roaming tables in the morning before 9.
Definitely
Or evenings. Yeah.
I'll jump in. I mean, I think there's an element about the customer empathy here too, because when we talk about roaming versus not roaming versus how we enable connectivity in multiple markets, I think what customers are looking for is the level of simplicity where they have a set of use cases and they have to take it to multiple markets. Traditionally, it has always been, okay, let's try to roam into these markets, which we've been extremely supportive of. But I think where the world is moving to, and we call it, when the tide rises, can all boats rise, world is moving towards the flexibility of dealing with local operator environments, when they go to certain markets for multiple reasons. One is for economic reasons. The second reason could be regulatory type reasons. And as a result of it, it's exactly to the previous conversation as well. If enterprises, customers want to work with an operator, they want the simplicity of either roaming or a profile-based localization, or for the matter, or IMSI-based solutions as well. But they want all that abstracted for themselves as opposed to them having to figure it out. So I think is roaming easier or not? I think that, roaming can be made easier through some of the things that Luke just talked about. But I think there's also a balance to be struck between how much we do in roaming, how much is done via eSIM localization, because with 5G, you're going to have to do some eSIM localization to gain all the benefits of 5G in a certain market. I mean, that's what I'd say.
Yeah, I would add to that the today localization is, as you mentioned, typically driven by regulatory requirements, but use cases might actually benefit from localization rather than permanent roaming. I think we've made a lot of strides over the last few years with IoT permanent roaming, but I think the future is probably a combination of both.
I think another good thing to consider with roaming as well, though, is that while we've sunset 2G and 3G and we've moved all into a 4G and a 5G world, we've actually created a plethora of different technologies so that one solution doesn't work worldwide anymore. And so you have people that perhaps have developed an LTE-M solution that works in a number of countries. But then they go to some country and they don't have LTE-M, they don't have narrowband IoT, or they don't have either. And so there's that awareness of that device maker and the customer deploying the device to know what is available in the country they're going to, and whether they have the right product to serve that region.
And none of that stuff interoperates between the various modalities.
I mean, there are solutions where there are modems that work with both LTE and IoT, but there are implications of that. And if you're a battery-powered device, switching between those modes technologies is very cumbersome and can be expensive in terms of your battery profile.
Adds complexity, which we're trying to avoid, and doesn't make it seamless for our customers, for sure.
So now we've been talking a bit about 5G. It's here. I guess you guys would all agree 5G's here. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, good. Otherwise, I'm on the wrong. So how does this change IoT? There's many flavors of 5G. There's many flavors of IoT underneath the 5G umbrella. So how does this all change IoT?
Some parts of it don't change at all. So you said there's many different capabilities and technologies under the 5G umbrella, two of which are LTE-M and narrowband IoT, both of which sit as part of 5G and continue to provide the connectivity for low power, wide area type use cases. Obviously, IoT covers a myriad, a complete spectrum of different use cases. And so we have devices with different capabilities tailored to fit different customer requirements. But the transition to 5G doesn't change what we're doing in terms of those low power wide area networks using narrowband and Cat-M, which is a really important point, because if you're building, you're a utility company building out a business case or bidding for a contract to provide, for example, smart metering for 15 years, you need to have the confidence that the technology you're investing in and that you're burying in the ground, sometimes if it's a water meter, is going to be around and supported and continue to operate. And I think the worst thing we can do often is talk about always moving on with different technologies that then reduces the confidence
we're so good at
to invest.
so
I know we
good
love technology, it's fantastic, but we also need to provide some real stability for people to use the tech.
I'm glad you said that. I could not agree more. And this idea that 5G IoT introduces interesting concepts and capabilities and enables use cases that, quite candidly, I don't think we've thought of most of the use cases that will truly benefit from 5G IoT. So it's one of those items that certainly depends. And then, of course, it's the device ecosystem that needs to follow. And then we need to get to that point in which the cost of these devices can add enough value in moving that transition to 5G IoT. So I think we're on a long journey together, and it's up to us to not confuse our customers in their initiatives, their projects, and the outcomes that they're looking for.
So I agree with both of you that I think the evolution of massive IoT or low power WAN kind of stays on course because it's largely anchored by the investments people have made in LTE with regard to the volumes and what they put out in the market. We are seeing some interesting things though, with adoption of general 5G and the unraveling and the unlocking of some new use cases. So if you traditionally think about like the three currencies of 5G as we talked about them, one's obviously the massive IoT component. We've talked about that at length. How do we digitize that more? How we simplify things more? How do we enable things like narrowband IoT, give customers the longevity they need? But there's two other currencies I think that are just starting to get tapped. And what I see more for customers right now is that IoT extends beyond massive IoT into becoming an overlay that says, if I'm going out and deploying an on-site network for someone, IoT is that outcome. If I go out and deploy a wireless solution for someone, IoT is that outcome. So I think there is a general evolution of what 5G means, starting out with massive IoT today to becoming video/analytics solutions tomorrow that actually operate on top of an edge-based solution. And then there's a lot happening in the automotive space. If we start to think about what the car of the future is going to be, it's going to be a highly connected, highly transmissible, a car that's actually need native functions just to stay safe and be in the market for 20 years. So beyond massive IoT, I think what 5G means in the space is, obviously evolve what we have on massive IoT and then introduce to customers newer use cases that can take advantage of the two other currencies of 5G, i.e. low latency and high throughput.
I think one of the key things, as everyone's kind of alluded to here, is IoT is not one solution. IoT is not only low power. IoT is not only wide area. IoT can be anything from something that needs a 1 kilobit throughput to a gigabit throughput. And so as you look at 5G, obviously the first round of 5G solutions you've seen today are more targeted towards that higher end of throughput. It's all sort of high bandwidth, fulfilling a lot of those large use cases. We have the LPWA still filling the very low use cases. Now with 5G Redcap, which is the next solution coming in this evolution, we're kind of filling that middle ground as well. So we have a middle ground solution to fill sort of the use cases for the asset trackers, perhaps the security systems, the devices like that, whereby there is a solution that can now fit everyone at the segment they need to enter into, which is priced appropriately for the capabilities they need.
So you said the magic word, Redcap. What the heck is it? Who wants to jump in on that one?
Redcap, I brought it up, so I'll mention it. So Redcap is 3GP solution with Release 17. It stands for Reduced Capability. It is a version of 5G that operates on an SA network. It's a standalone network that operates on a maximum 20 megahertz of spectrum. The benefit of that is it allows for a simpler RF design, reducing the cost of the radios. So a lot of 5G devices, if you look at today, are very expensive. When you come to Redcap with a reduced RF design and a simpler approach to that, you get to reduce that cost again and bring it back in line with where LTE prices were today. But while bringing the benefits of LTE, M, like EDRX, PSM, so the power saving type functions that you saw in the LTE networks come into the 5G world. So now you can take advantage of those functions within a 5G Redcap solution, as well as bringing the 5G solutions of improved latency, access to NEF and other things like that have been mentioned already this morning. So I think it's a great opportunity to bridge the gap between the solutions and provide opportunities for everyone.
I think it's a great bridge for customers to go from, where they are in massive IoT or in LTE technologies to kind of get the first taste of standalone networks. Because if you start to kind of, convert some of these technology capabilities into use cases, you're talking about some healthcare devices, you're talking about industrial gateways, you're talking about drones, you're talking about video analytics devices. And these are the mid-tier category that's actually waiting for affordability in the price point. And if you think about the capabilities they need, they want to benefit from low latency. They want to benefit from, some of the capabilities in standalone. But they can make do with the throughputs that they used to get in LTE. I think that's sort of the right combination that comes together. It says, can I do with the throughput with LTE? Yes, I can. Do I need standalone capabilities? Yes, I do. And do I need the levels of low latency? And I think that's sort of the right combination for the use cases that puts you right in the middle of Redcap.
Might be a little bit controversial or not?
No.
Not here. So I'm in two minds about Redcap. I think it probably depends on where you're coming from in terms of your priorities as a network operator and the speed with which you might be wanting to retire certain technologies. I think when you look at it from a customer perspective, and again, it's back down to the blocker that we mentioned around stability and keeping the device costs as low as possible, yet still able to address at least 80% of the use cases that people have in mind. And I'm a little bit concerned in introducing Redcap, where you reduce some of the traction, the momentum from the 4G technologies that we can already provide today, given that Redcap is at least a couple of years out, and it will take even more years before the device costs for Redcap start to approach those of LTE. So I think we just need to, it's a great technology, I'm not speaking against it at all, but I think trying to match it with where you are in terms of the network evolution, putting the customer requirements front and center in terms of what problem they're trying to solve, and then consider what the best tool is to use.
Yeah. And also, are customers discussing Redcap with you guys already?
Absolutely.
Or are you discussing it with them?
Both. Okay. And I think one of the key things with Redcap to consider is it's complementary, right? It's not there to compete with LTE-M and narrowband IoT. It's there to supplement them and to provide a channel for other solutions to go beyond. Because we also, as a network, we see solutions today where they use LTE-M or they try and use narrowband IoT, and frankly, they're using the wrong technology.
But to be clear, I wasn't competing it with the LPWA stuff. I was saying you're effectively competing with the higher categories of LTE. I know it's complementary with LPWA. Yeah. It's the others that I think we're in two minds about, and we're going to take a lead from our customers on this in terms of understanding what they need to see by way of device capabilities and price points, and how much they value the lower latency performance improvements you can get which is great on paper, but it depends whether it's needed for the use case that you have in mind.
I fall more into that category, I think, in your comments around what it means to the customer and from their point of view. I think the other element we haven't talked about is that this evolution from 4G to 5G, and as we as carriers begin, I'm not making any announcements here, by the way. Just sharing my point
Sounds
of
like
view.
you're about to.
No, I'm not. Trust me, I'm not. But as 4G evolves into 5G and more of our traffic moves to 5G, you're going to see the carriers start talking about sunsetting of technology of 4G. And as we're making that migration, you're going to see more importance as those use cases that have been in these higher categories of LTE begin to shift over. And where do they fit? Well, Redcap is a great spot for them within the technology stack within 5G. So I think that's where we're really going to start seeing the ecosystem ramping up to move some of those use cases. There will, of course, be use cases that fit there to start. But I think that's really going to help. It's going to be that migration. It's going to take time.
And as you mentioned, I mean, one of the key drivers around this is spectrum, right? Spectrum is a valuable resource for us.
Of course.
We don't have infinite spectrum, and we got to use it in the best ways. And so you're going to have to see paths where things do have to transition. It's the same thing when we had to sunset 2G and 3G, and
It's natural.
And these things happen.
Also,
As complicated as it gets.
Operators.
Yeah,
Certainly.
I mean, speaking about the customer use case, are people being very prescriptive about, yes, I want Redcap or nothing? I don't think we're there yet. Although people are saying that they want to future-proof their deployments.
But they always say it. But the real question is, how do you help the customer choose the right technology?
Which is why mapping the use cases to the technology is going to be extremely essential.
And understanding the business case for them and the longevity of the solution in which they're deploying is going to significantly help to point them to the right radio.
Because it's a business outcome they're interested in. They don't actually care about the technology that we're bringing to the field.
100%.
That's our problem, not theirs, to a large extent.
That's
and what they're looking to achieve as a business should drive the technology choice. It should be a series of questions of, do I need global? Do I need longevity? Do I need low latency? Do I need high throughput? You answer a series of those questions and you come out with what the right technology is.
But are you taking that to, we all have to work with field sales organizations. Are your field sales guys set up so that they can ask those questions? I think Cameron was talking about customer journeys. Is everybody doing requirements gathering and guiding folks to the right answer?
I mean, a lot of that's
This is a
internal
non-technical
education, obviously, within each of our
I
operating
might be a
structures.
little biased on this particular question, given I lead a sales organization.
All right.
Focused on that sort of consultative sales process. So yeah, that is absolutely what's happening in the market today. And when it doesn't, it's usually met with disappointing or disastrous results for our customers.
I think that's true.
Yes to that. Yeah.
So we prepared for this. This is the fill in the blank part of our panel.
Go for it.
5G IoT means blank for customer outcomes.
New opportunities.
Generational.
Challenges.
Yeah. Confusion.
I'm giving that round to Luke. I don't know how everybody else feels, but I think that's perfect.
I don't run sales, it's fine.
Nor will you. So we've been talking about various different things. I just read that 6 billion things are going to be connected on cellular networks by 2027. Not your number, someone else's number. I think you might have a different number. You'll tell us later. But the real question is whether it's Matt's number or not. Has more affordable silicon arrived? How has it helped? And are you seeing this grow? It's a 3-part question.
So, more affordable silicon, absolutely. I mean, the introduction of LTE and narrowband IoT enabled kind of much lower solutions or cost solutions than what we'd seen previously in terms of the current technology. So if you look back at 2G, you could buy a 2G module for $2. But if you looked at the current generation technology, you're looking at LTE sort of at $20+. When LTE-M came along, we got an opportunity to be able to get to a sub $10 module, which enabled far more opportunities and solutions at a much lower price point. And then that evolution is continuing with narrowband IoT. Costs are continuing to drive down. We're seeing Cat 1 kind of plummet into lower cost price points now as well. So absolutely, you're seeing kind of the cost drive down, which opens up more and more opportunities for these customers to bring these products along, as well as some of the other technology evolutions as well, like the power saving modes and EDRX, enable them to bring in these low cost devices into a low cost product that fits a use case no one thought of before, like a remote lock or a package tracker.
It's funny how that mythical hockey stick kind of starts to taper every year on out, so we start with the 6 billions and every year tapers. But, I think those billions come when customers are ready to cross a certain chasm. And that chasm is to go from the existing state of the way they look at IoT, use cases like trackers and all the things you mentioned, to when they say that, now I have the affordability to actually go start connecting sensors, that were traditionally connected through other technologies. And that's when you see that kind of hockey stick, right? So are we there in terms of affordability? I wish we were at this point, because we saw some of that with LTM. We saw LTM prices in the, $18, $20 range, and they're now out down to, things that are much more affordable. There's certain parts of the world where narrowband IoT has really taken off. There's other parts of the world that it hasn't. So I think we need that level of uniformity where a sensor manufacturer with an NB-IoT chip in a certain part of the world can actually go and be operational in every other part of the world. So we need that interoperability. Has the silicon prices, been at a place where we're going to see that hockey stick? I would say no, we're not there yet.
I would agree with the comments of my colleagues.
I think as well, it depends, like many things in life. So the silicon is only one part of the solution the customer is deploying. And if it happens to be in a very, very low-cost sensor, then of course it dominates more of the bill of materials of that device. If it's in a fairly expensive water meter or something, then it's a little bit less price sensitive to the silicon. I think the other thing we need to think about is just the length of time it takes for these technologies to gain traction, or is loitering at the back. But it was 6 years ago when we were doing the water meter trials in Spain. We've only just landed a contract to deploy those in the tens of thousands. So it takes a while.
And the underlying technology has already shifted a couple of times in 6 years.
But because people need to gain confidence that this thing is going to be around, that it works, it's reliable, it's part of the infrastructure. So I think we need to provide, we need to look at it from the customer's perspective as well in terms of where they place their bets and be a little bit patient with this.
So let's shift over to super low latency stuff. Where does this really benefit customers? Because, I'm an old IoT M2M kind of guy, and it was just, sticking a sensor on a thing and, letting me know if something happens, an alarm or whatever. But now we're dealing with super low, great networks. You guys have built great networks. You've invested, billions and billions into that. So what are the super low latency use cases, and how does that benefit customers?
There's probably a lot of low latency use cases that are very viable in IoT. If you look at electrical grids, you have a fault on a line or somewhere, an ability to instantly shut down that line and redistribute electricity down other paths. Or a factory situation where something breaks on the line and you can shut a machine down to prevent issues or further production failures or damage to humans. So there's definitely opportunities where the faster you get the response out, the quicker you can take action and the more you can protect your resources and your people.
There's use cases around, the simplicity of authentication. How do you allow access control to happen in a very low latency fashion? There's very interesting use cases that are popping up in the vehicular space. So especially if you start to think about the connected vehicle and, how they have to push for ADAS in a way where, some of the compute would be resident between the vehicle and outside the vehicle. I mean, those become very essential use cases. And then more importantly, I guess, when you start to look at, some of the use cases you talked about factory automation, I mean, there's a huge element in, worker safety. And how does the combination of something that's low latency and deployed on a factory side can enable that use case? I mean, that's one we start to see a lot.
Yeah, I agree. Manufacturing, automotive, and extending the automotive paradigm into C2B to X, and the importance of low latency in those scenarios, the interoperability or interrelationship with other things. Absolutely critical.
So I agree with my colleagues. I think there's plenty of opportunities. The challenge for me is not one of the technology, it's more the business model and how the revenues flow. If we take the automotive example, we're starting to provide a super low latency service that might allow people to start, as you say, to offboard things from ADAS, or to start to take action without having to use direct mode vehicle communications to do platooning, for example. It's fine, the technology can do it, but it doesn't come for free. We're set up to sell best effort services.
Right.
And if we're suddenly starting to provide a service where it's mission critical over a wide area, and in that example, cars are going to crash into each other if we're not delivering the right latency, then that is a more expensive service. And the one thing I know about the automotive guys, even though I'm not in sales, is that they don't want to pay for anything extra at all. So there's a business model question with all of these super low latency capabilities. It means we need to figure that piece out at the same time as deploying tech. But deploying the tech doesn't solve it.
So it's really, are you willing to pay for this?
Yeah,
if you could have it, would you pay for it?
Would you pay for it? What's that SLA worth to you?
And who pays the question? Who pays the question?
So is it the auto OEM? Yes. Is it a consumer?
It's a chicken and egg problem too. So they're in the middle of an upgrade cycle right now, the automakers, and they're saying, what justifies my upgrade to a 5G chip? What other services become available, and how am I future-proofing against that stuff, as opposed to, well, I'm getting the exact same things, and yet I ended up paying higher for a 5G chip. So I think both go together. You almost have to showcase the benefits of 5G and the reason for the step up, especially when they're in the middle of the upgrade cycles.
So I think, given, we've got just a few minutes left, I have two quick topics. Threats and opportunities for 5G IoT, just kind of a quick fire challenge here. Maybe I will go up the line. Threats and opportunities.
Threats and opportunities. The opportunity is massive scale.
Okay.
Like coming into Redcap and the size of what we could do with that technology. Threat is cost and ecosystem readiness of whether everything is there in place to be able to do it.
Threat for me is, are we cutting corners so much to drive down costs that we're compromising on security? I think security is a fabric that needs to be built in, so that's, I think, a potential threat. On opportunities, I think it's silicon and coming up with more creative commercial models. It just can't be that we keep selling people gigs and gigs of data and we expect that they use it, but coming up with new commercial models that are more tailored towards the sensor space.
Yeah, great points. Maybe another threat to this is that we undermine the progress we've made in IoT in the 4G stack and with low power, and we create this sort of wait and see environment because we maybe overhang the market too hard on 5G IoT. Opportunities, I agree. I think that it's all the work that all the carriers are doing in the area of innovation, working with startups and funding some of those activities are going to create use cases that can be very transformational, truly, to steal Cannon's comment, truly IoT, which is exciting.
No, I think all of the opportunities that we had in mind when we first started this journey years ago with IoT are still there. I think they're largely untapped. I agree with all the challenges that have been laid out, but I think it is just one of fragmentation as well. We still have multiple different ways of tackling it. Any form of fragmentation reduces scale, increases cost, increases the confusion to customers in terms of what they actually select in terms of
and confused customers don't buy anything.
And they don't buy anything. They don't keep buying. That's true.
They just study it and do endless POCs, which
Still they do a trial with a bad solution of one that wasn't tailored to their application, and they throw out IoT entirely because they think, well, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But they use the wrong thing to start with.
Interesting.
Yeah. So those are the challenges.
Yep. So final question, as we are unbelievably in the fourth quarter or just about, and we're all in our planning cycles for next year, pick a use case to watch. So when we all meet up in Barcelona in a few months, and we have one of the 100 Ts I heard about in Cameron's presentation, what are the use cases to watch? What are we going to meet up and go, I can't believe we got this one going? Pick one.
I'd love the drone stuff. I still want us to be controlling drones beyond visible line of sight, and I consider that to be a really interesting use case.
Luke says drones.
Yeah, well, if the time horizon is as short as you just provided.
No, for all of next year.
Okay.
I don't,
Well, I guess, I'm really interested in some of these standalone 5G use cases that are beginning to emerge, certainly network slicing, API for quality of service. I think those things are going to open up more mission-critical use cases that potentially software developers and clients haven't quite been comfortable leveraging cellular for those kind of.
Okay. Robert.
You agree to all of that. I mean, since you mentioned Barcelona, I'll also throw in that, I was just very enamored to see one of our partners manage to put like a chip on a soccer ball. And that's been scaling up pretty crazy. So, those are the types of use cases that eventually get us into the hundreds of millions of
Soccer balls, okay?
probably just a broadening of industrial IoT and sensors along that same lines of can you put IoT in batteries? Can you put IoT in FedEx labels and grow from that dramatic scale?
Excellent. Well, join me in thanking my panel for a great discussion.